In the previous episode, Goldgrind reached level 60 with ease and stacked up 30,000 gold, a solid amount for any fresh player. Today, he pushed things even further, hitting level 70, buying epic flying for 5,000 gold, and farming all the way up to 50,000 gold. And all of that within just 24 hours of playtime. To begin his Outland journey, Goldgrind headed to one of the most chaotic PvP spots in the game, the Dark Portal in Blasted Lands. He even tried going full RP mode, hoping the Horde would ignore him and let him pass. But that absolutely did not happen. After a few deaths, he finally made it through and arrived in Outland's starting zone, Hellfire Peninsula. First priority, upgrading to a flying mount. Not a huge cost, but 150% flying is way better than crawling on a 100% ground mount. After upgrading his professions, he was ready to quest. You may have noticed that Goldgrind already had almost an entire level of XP at the end of the last episode. That's because of all the mobs he killed while farming thorium in Western Plaguelands. Since leveling is incredibly quick on Warmane's Ice Crown realm thanks to the times 7 XP rate, Goldgrind came up with a fun challenge. Can he reach level 70 without ever leaving Hellfire Peninsula? On paper, it sounds doable. 7 zones in Outland, 7 times XP. Why leave Hellfire at all? Sure, it might not be the speedrunner's choice, but it could be the most effortless path. And hey, the higher the level, the easier the mobs. Theoretically. The main focus was to complete as many quests as possible, picking up only nearby herbs or ores along the way. Professions would get their turn once the leveling was finished. With 0 heirlooms and no outside help, Goldgrind was simply destroying everything in his path. Hellfire Peninsula is a zone he knows extremely well, so most quests were done from memory. Level 65 came in just about 1 hour of playtime, but as the levels go higher, things naturally slowed down. More experience was required per level, and eventually Goldgrind found himself fighting mobs far below his level. But that didn't slow down his pace. Easier mobs meant bigger pulls for Goldgrind, making every quest even faster to complete. And of course, elite mobs stood no chance against him. No group required. By the time he reached level 67, most quests had already turned green, and normally this is where you'd move on to the next zone. But not Goldgrind. He even walked into Hellfire Ramparts, because yes, he had a quest in there. The Ramparts run was smooth as butter. He dinged 68, but not a single item upgrade. Still a solid chunk of XP and quest rewards waiting for him. After that, it was time for the big boys. 5 Raging Colossus later, and Goldgrind dinged 69. Next up was Goliathon, which turned out to be surprisingly easy to solo. But the real challenge came with Arazius the Cruel. With nearly double the health of rock giants, this fight was on a different level. Just when things got rough, a Horde player jumped in. At first it looked like he wanted to steal the kill, but instead he helped finish it, without even knowing. And then the best part. He apologized afterwards, because he's actually one of the viewers. All good, dude. Thanks for the assist. After grabbing the trinket from Arazius and finishing a couple more quests, Goldgrind finally hit level 70. He even did one bonus quest for that clean-looking helm. Now he's a proper miner, ready to farm Outland ores with style. Then straight back to Honorhold for the most important upgrade of all, Epic Flying. A hefty 5k gold investment, but the 280% flying speed turns everything into turbo mode. that investment should pay itself back faster than anything else he bought. Next step is clearing the bags into the bank. Nothing goes to the auction house yet. There are still a few essentials to handle first. A quick stop by the class trainer to learn all level 70 abilities. And pick up another glyph, and Goldgrind is officially ready to start making some gold. At this point, Goldgrind still didn't max out either his primary or secondary professions. So he came up with a plan. Travel through every zone in Outland, fully explore each area, uncover every flight path, and gather any nearby herbs and ores along the way. Not only would this route bring his primary professions to max level, but it would also give him a good overview of which zones contain which materials, and which zones are heavily contested. The first zone on the list was Hellfire Peninsula, a place Goldgrind already knew well after clearing nearly all quests there. Surprisingly, the area was packed with herbs. It felt like blasted lands all over again. Burning ground, burning mobs, burning herbs. You get the idea. And as expected, the only ore you could really find was Fel Iron. Herbalism hit max here without any trouble, but mining needed something more. To finish that profession, Goldgrind had to move on to zones with a much higher density of Adamantite veins. Zangarmarsh had plenty to offer. The terrain is mostly flat, which makes farming incredibly simple and smooth. The only mountains and caves are along the outer edges of the zone, and if you choose to skip them, there are still more than enough nodes to collect. The only real downside is that some veins spawn deep underwater. A druid with aquatic form would have a massive advantage here. But even those can be ignored if you want to keep your route efficient. And this zone hides a little secret. A treasure Goldgrind will reveal later in the video. Terokar Forest turned out to be a perfect mix of the previous two zones. Not the easiest terrain, but since Shatrach is near, very easy to get to for some fast farming. Plenty of Adamantite veins and herbs everywhere. And surprisingly far less competition than Goldgrind expected. During the exploration, he even scored his first rare kill and picked up a huge belt upgrade. And with that, he pushed mining all the way to 375. Both primary profession maxed and only 3 zones explored so far. Next up was Shadowmourne Valley, a zone with rough terrain, steep elevation changes, and mobs glued to almost every herb and ore node. Not exactly ideal for Goldgrind. At level 70, every pull slows him down, and he's not here to farm cloth. He's here strictly for herbs and ores. Although Shadowmourne does offer a high number of nodes, and the mats sell for slightly better prices on the auction house, the overall vibe just didn't click with him. Constant fighting, hard to reach spots, contested territory. Not worth the slowdown. 4 zones explored, 3 more to go. Goldgrind's next stop was Northrend, with only the 2 upper Outland zones left afterward. On the way through Terokar Forest, he picked up a few more nodes, but backspace ran low, so he made a quick trip to the bank to clear everything out. And then something completely unexpected happened. A subscriber walked up to him in-game. Not only did he recognize Goldgrind, but he even offered him a gold as a thank you for the videos. A kind gesture, absolutely, but this is a solo challenge, and accepting gold would ruin the integrity of the run, so Goldgrind politely declined. If you're on Warmane and want to donate gold, there are always people begging for it in the front of the auction house. Back in Northrend, the terrain immediately proved unfriendly. Constant elevation changes, and uneven ground made gathering slower than in previous zones. The herbs and ores were nothing new at this point, just the same types Goldgrind had already seen throughout Outland. To make things worse, many mobs here have stuns or charge abilities which made avoiding them the smartest choice. Remember, Goldgrind isn't here to farm cloth, he's here for herbs and ores. Competition was also noticeable, with several other players roaming the zone. Overall, it wasn't the most pleasant farming area, and Goldgrind was more than ready to move on to the next zone. While traveling toward Blade's Edge Mountains, Goldgrind grabbed a few more nearby herbs and ores in Zangarmarsh. But once he entered Blade's Edge, well, there wasn't much good to say. The entire zone is covered in spikes, the elevation changes are brutal, and navigating from one node to another feels painfully slow. Sure, the zone does have resources to offer, but the flight paths required to reach them are simply awful. Goldgrind just wanted to get the exploration done as quickly as possible and move on. Just when entering Netherstorm, Goldgrind immediately learned why this zone isn't ideal for farming. He was instantly killed by another farmer. On his way back to the corpse, it became clear that this type of terrain only makes everything more difficult and way slower. Much like the previous zone, Netherstorm has plenty to offer, but the chaotic layout and constant deaths turn every minute into wasted time. With that, Goldgrind completed the exploration of his final Outland zone, gathered all the information he needed about herbs and ore locations, and unlocked every flight path for the faster future farming. Time to visit Bank again. This time another player whispered Goldgrind, not for gold, not for help, but simply to appear in the video with a kind message. The support has been incredible. Not a single hate whisper from the supposedly toxic Warmane community. Irony at its finest. After organizing everything and posting all the gathered materials on the auction house, the total value came out slightly above 5k gold. Almost exactly what Goldgrind spent on his epic flying. Perfect. Next on the list were Goldgrind's secondary professions. For cooking, he bought a few recipes and all the materials straight from the auction house, and after spending roughly 200 gold, the profession was fully maxed. With 2.5 stacks of netherwave cloth, first aid quickly followed, another profession kept with almost no effort. For fishing, however, Goldgrind had no shortcut. He spent around 45 minutes doing nothing but casting and catching fish. Every 5 to 10 caught fish gave him about 3 skill points. Slow, steady, and impossible to rush. Just classic fishing. Before start farming and making gold, fast review of these zones. Hellfire Peninsula, decent amount of nodes, heavily contested, terrain not ideal. Zangarmarsh, excellent nodes thanks to the expensive consumable, Flame Cap. Highly contested, extremely easy terrain. Terokar Forest, good node density, surprisingly low competition. Terrain mediocre. Shadowmourne Valley, very high node value, highly contested, difficult terrain with mobs everywhere. Nagrand, lots of nodes but heavily contested and extremely annoying terrain with constant elevation changes. Blade's Edge Mountains, plenty of nodes, medium to high contest, but one of the worst terrains in Outlet for farming. Netherstorm, many nodes but terrain is rough, competition high and ganks frequent. Easily one of the least efficient zones for consistent farming. With almost 20k gold left to farm, the zone that made the most sense for Goldgrind was Zangarmarsh. The terrain is flat, the routes are smooth, and flame caps can sometimes sell for around 30 gold each. With a bit of luck, looting 3 from a single herb node means nearly 100 gold in just a few seconds. Goldgrind spent roughly 8 hours farming here, in total, running multiple laps. The only downside is that flame caps don't sell instantly, but they do sell. When everything was collected and sold, the profit came out to about 8.5k gold. The next best item turned out to be something surprisingly common: Fel Iron bars. Not only did Goldgrind farm a huge amount of Fel Iron ore, but buying cheap ore from the auction house and smelting it was an easy 1 gold profit per bar. In total, Goldgrind spent 12,000 gold on both Fel Iron ore and bars and earned 18,500 gold back, ending with a clean 6,500 gold profit. Just these two items alone brought Goldgrind 15,000 gold out of the 20,000 he needed to reach his final goal of 50,000 gold. Adamantite ended up being the third most profitable material. After spending just under 8,000 gold on both ores and bars, Goldgrind managed to bring in a total of 10,200 gold from sales, a clean profit of about 2,200 gold. Honorable mentions for profit is also Eternium ore, buying cheap primal fire, turning them into mote of fire, and flipping both materials. And that's pretty much it. 50k gold and level 70. Not bad, right? It took a lot of grinding, and this video took quite a while to edit, especially since you can see that Goldgrind's last auction sold more than a week ago. I had some IRL obligations and was sick for a few days, so I hope you understand. Before the end of the video, a few things to mention. Next episode is the last one with leveling, but right now with 50k gold, Goldgrind already have enough for his first bis item. I'll explain how in the next episode, so stay tuned. To make it more interactive, you'll get to vote on which item he gets first. Head over to Discord and vote. And yes, shadowmourne will be the epic finale, so the legendary weapon is saved for the last episode. Until then, see you in the next episode in Northrend.